Everyone would go to sleep around like 10. I would make my cup of coffee at that time. Dark cup of coffee. I would be up until 3 straight. Over time, though, this actually had a very adverse effect until I reached a point that it was like a severely adverse effect, and I didn't know it was a problem. Because when you're so focused on something, you're messing something else up. You don't even realize you're totally destroying something else. And that's what happens to people who get hyper-focused on things, is that they're totally destroying something else without even being aware. And so that thing becomes a monster that you have to deal with. So it threw my health completely off whack. And ultimately, I went to my physician, and he basically said, tell me everything about your day. And he said, okay, this is not acceptable. I said, I want you to do something tonight. He said, whatever you do, get in bed at 9 o'clock. I was like, this is insane. You get bed at 3, right? No, that's not practical. But he said, basically, you should hover around 10 o'clock. That really changed everything. And the importance of sleeping right. It's not the amount, it's the time it's the when you actually go to sleep, he said. The doctor told me your healing starts at 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. Yeah. If you pass 1 a.m., you're not healing. You're just, I don't know what it is. So talk to us about that.
So I would actually make this number one in the avoid disaster diet.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would. Yeah, this is definitely number one before hydration, before stretching. Is sleep. It is the bedrock of everything. How you feel, how you recover. I hear sometimes, or I felt sometimes, it's like, today's just not working out. Today, I want this day to end. It's just not. And that's a day in your life that you want to end.
It's
That's
gone.
just such.
Yeah.
And you want it to be gone. I just need a reset tomorrow. And
Mm-hmm.
people are in a bad mood, and I think I heard the psychiatrist say this, and this might be Akhi science again, but 80% of depression can be solved by a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And
SubhanAllah.
and so to me, that begins and ends with sleep, and
Yeah.
everything you said is absolutely right. So you have your deep sleep in the beginning of the night, and that's where your body physically recovers. And then you have your REM sleep later in the night, and that's when your mind actually absorbs the data, and so it's your body and your mind at different times. If you miss the beginning of the cycle, it's not like the whole thing pushes. And so you need the sleep, you need the consistency. I love my nighttime hanging out and stuff like that, but I I can't sacrifice the next day.
Yeah. I know.
It's just not worth
Yeah.
it for me. And so I'm so extreme about this that I eat early. Like I won't do things. Like the reason I wasn't gonna do this podcast because this is my bedtime,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is 10 p.m. in Turkey. This is the
Yeah.
time I'm sleeping. But I love you. So, but in general, I do everything that you'd hear about on the internet. I turn off my laptop an hour before. I only read. I eat only a couple of hours before. There's no caffeine past 1 p.m. Anything that may impact the quality of my sleep, I try to avoid. I keep my room cold,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
that's better.
oh yeah, that's much better.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now it might cause some marital issues, wanting but you've heard the concept of sleep divorce. I don't know if you've heard the
No,
concept of
what's
sleep
that all?
divorce.
They just because of their sleep routines.
Yeah, just because of their sleep routines, people sleep in separate rooms. I'm not advocating this,
Yeah.
but that's how important it is that some people like declare sleep divorce. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and so like the wife will sleep in one room, the husband will sleep in another one. Again, I'm not advocating that, but
That's
it
a
is a thing.
disaster.
It is, and so yeah, a cooler temperature, uh, having the same set time every day. And to me, the sacrifices required to get a good night's sleep are worth having a good day the following day.
Oh, it is.
Feeling
It
it's
is.
just worth it. Like
Yeah.
waking up feeling like ugh and
Yeah.
snapping at people and feeling unrested and that one of the ways you had good sleep if you track it with a Whoop band, it's not just the quality of the sleep, but the HRV. Your HRV is a marker that will tell you effectively how stressed you are and how well you're rested and how ready you are for the day.
How does it do that? And what does HRV stand for?
So basically, what HRV is so you have your heartbeat, right? and so your heart beats, and then there's a time, usually measured in milliseconds, between each heartbeat. And so the higher the time is, to answer your first question, it's heart rate variability, right? So imagine there is a beat, time. The higher the variability, so imagine like it's X milliseconds, but it's more milliseconds here, it's more milliseconds. The higher the variability between the heartbeats, the better. The lower the time between the heartbeats, it's really fascinating. It's all about the negative space. The lower the time, that means the lower HRV, the more your sympathetic nervous system is activated, the more stressed you are. The
So
more
that means faster heartbeat, slower heartbeat,
no,
or
it's
it's a
not
variation too.
the variation of time between the heartbeat. So boom boom, and then there's a pause. Boom boom, there's a pause. The variation of time between the heartbeats is what's called the heart rate variability. And so if you're an elite athlete, they're constantly monitoring this thing because they'll wake
Yeah.
up to look at their HRV score, and they'll say, "Well, I have a relatively low HRV. That means I'm not going to perform well today, or
Yeah.
most likely I'm not going to perform well." And so, what are the two inputs into a bad HRV that tells you you're going to have most likely a bad day? Bad sleep and stress. Lots of stress. And so that's a marker I follow because I don't know if you ever heard the quote, "What you measure, you manage."
Yes. What
And
you
so
measure, you can
you
grow. What
manage.
you manage? Yeah. If you
You
can
manage
measure
what
it,
you
you can.
measure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, I check my HRV in the morning, and it'll tell me sort of where I am in terms of rest and recovery and how I'm going to be that day.
So I remember watching Khabib in when he beat Justin Gaethje, I think his name was
Gaethje.
Gaethje. He
Yeah,
talked about this actually. He said that Gaethje. He said I looked at it, just looking at him, I could tell he was sleep deprived,
yeah,
and he was his sleep was off. He could tell by just looking at him, and then he told him that he made a mistake in traveling from I guess the U.S. to Dubai or the Emirates where they had this fight, Dubai or Abu Dhabi, that he said you traveled a week in advance. You should have traveled 2 weeks in advance
exactly.
to totally set yourself right. And he said like he could tell the guy was slow, a little bit slower. Everything was just slightly enough to give him the edge over him. So it's crazy how athletes, they judge that. Now I want to make clear, when you say the variability, that means let's say X milliseconds between one beat and the first beat and the second, X plus one between the second
Yeah,
and the third,
that's good.
X plus half, right? So it's
Yeah,
different each.
yeah. It's going to be different, but the greater the variability,
Yeah.
like the better.
So that
That
means
that
a very
means
slow heartbeat is better.
Well, it's not just a slow heartbeat. I mean usually people look at their heartbeat and say, okay, I'm doing I'm 48 beats per minute.
Yeah.
My resting heart rate is 48 beats per minute. Therefore, which is very, very good. And that's what I used to track. I used to track usually my VO2 max
Okay.
and my resting heart rate. And as long as it was under 50, I'm in a good place. I never tracked the time between the beats, which is the HRV, which is a really interesting
Time
measure.
between the beats more important than just okay.
Well, it is important. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
tell you not just your cardiovascular fitness, but it'll tell you sort of your total stress and how basically the state of your parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
But
Tell
there
me.
are ways. But there are ways. Let's just say you wake up feeling terrible. You can't go back in time and fix your sleep.
Can't
But
do
there
it.
are things you can do during the day to improve your HRV and improve your readiness. Like there are things you can do. You don't just have
Yeah.
to like declare bankruptcy on that day.
Well, sometimes honestly,